The coronavirus pandemic has brought all live entertainments to an abrupt halt, but few areas are as badly affected as sport. The music industry will suffer, of course, as will theaters up and down the country, but while shows, films, and game releases can be postponed and pushed back to a time when social distancing isn't quite so imperative, professional sports have found themselves on an unprecedented hiatus. The most notable example is the delay to the Olympics. Although the Games' future has been relatively easy to determine, Tokyo will host its Olympic Games in 2021, with the schedule reverting to normal in time for Paris in 2024. Wimbledon will not take place this year, its first absence from summer screens since World War II. Rugby's Six Nations has been postponed indefinitely, as has football's Premier League and America's National Basketball Association and Major League Baseball competitions. As millions of people, and dozens of broadcasters, find themselves with nothing to watch, esports are eyeing up the gap. In Finland, the official playoffs for the country's national sport, ice hockey, have been replaced by games of NHL 20. On the other side of the Atlantic, NASCAR has become a digital spectacle, one with all the drama of a traditional race. For those already occupying the emerging space between esports and traditional sports, the current pandemic has resulted in a shift in audience. Ryan Pessoa, Manchester City FC's official FIFA 20 player, says that as his contemporaries on the pitch have found themselves without much to do, the type of person tuning into his streams has changed. The pandemic does give a platform for FIFA esports to grow, because those people who can relate and support a specific team might be able to support the esports version of their team. In recent weeks, Pessoa's audience has transitioned from one that's mostly just interested in FIFA to a growing contingent of Manchester City fans. There are a lot that aren't necessarily FIFA fans, or might not even have the game, but they tune in just to try and get some experience with what it's about, and the similarities it does have with real football. Kieran Holmes Darby is the founder of UK-based organisation Excel Esports, and says the influx of viewers desperate for something to watch is an opportunity both for esports and mainstream broadcasters. There's only so many best goals of the Premier League montages that you can put on Sky Sports and BT Sport, so they have to start thinking about other content they can put on there. Excel's most successful export is its League of Legends team, which competes in Riot's official European Championship, but Holmes Darby isn't calling for the likes of the LEC and the Overwatch League to start appearing on your TV screens immediately. That may seem surprising, but his reasoning is sound. Events like that have all gone online, and the quality of the broadcast has gone down. The shows aren't as good to watch now as they were 3 or 4 weeks ago, says Holmes Darby. If that's what the show looks like and this is the first time it gets in front of the mainstream, it's a lower quality product than what we'd want to produce. While esports like FIFA and Madden aren't necessarily as well produced as those that Riot and Blizzard have poured millions into, a bad FIFA stream just looks like a game of football, whereas a game of League of Legends, it's difficult for the mainstream to understand it, so it needs to be better produced in order for them to engage with it. For now then, the solution seems to be to stick with digital versions of traditional sport, and allow esports the opportunity to be a part of a changing narrative around digital sport in general. Holmes Darby knows that any press is good press, and, with Excel trying to plant itself firmly at the centre of UK esports, the current dearth of content represents a unique opportunity, even if it's the pre-existing powerhouses of British sport that perhaps have the biggest opportunity to enact change. Tottenham Hotspur can do more for FIFA's esports scene than Excel. It's a shame therefore that many traditional sporting setups have been dragging their feet over their digital footprint. Even before this pandemic, Holmes Darby says Excel has been in conversations with rights holders, governing bodies, and league organisers throughout traditional sport, but that they can't get away from the fact that if you're a rugby organisation, you don't have to do the rugby game. If you're at the FA, you don't have to do FIFA. So you will only see the NBA doing NBA 2K, and the RFU doing Rugby 20. In a sporting world continually driven by personalities just as much as individual clubs, some people are just keen to have something new to watch. Man City's Ryan Pessoa says that it comes down to personal preference, but if City and Argentina striker Sergio Aguero was streaming any game, I'd still tune in. For me, it doesn't really matter, but for clubs and sponsors it's different. Nevertheless, with the likes of Harry Kane making headlines less than 2 years ago for enjoying a spot of Fortnite in his World Cup downtime, branching out into other games looks a lot like an open goal. Despite the opportunities esports has in this unusual time, it's impossible to tell what role it will ultimately play in substituting for traditional sports during this long-term hiatus. There's no question of replacement. No traditional sport is going to turn to esports to draw their seasons to a close. Pessoa reckons Premier League fans and players alike would rather wait for an opportunity to restart, even at the expense of next season, rather than hand Liverpool a virtual version of the trophy. Holmes Darby says the broader esports ecosystem has to adapt to this new world, hopefully alongside traditional sports, but with eyes wide open about expectations versus reality. Whole season schedules are going to change. Our players can continue to play, but there have been business changes as well. Do you think the current climate is going to be the first time a new brand enters the esports space, when their marketing budgets have been slashed? I highly doubt it. But if they want to do any marketing, maybe we're their only option. It's pros and cons everywhere you look.